Welcome to Spirits and Cousins. I'm Tish,
And I'm Courtney.
and this episode is going to be pretty cool because we're going to talk about somewhere we just went to in northern Michigan. And where was that, Court?
Sault Ste. Marie. We got to go to the Michigan PARACON.
Yep, the biggest in the country. But first, we're going to talk about what spirit we're drinking. And I will start with telling you all that I am not drinking a spirit tonight. I am drinking a hint coconut water. And I get these on subscription. I get coconut, I get blackberry, I get mango, and I have been feeling under the weather the last few days, so I'm not drinking a spirit. But I'm sure Courtney has something more interesting to talk about as far as what she's drinking.
I am drinking Gentleman Jack, which was one of my most favorite spirits. It is really smooth. It is twice filtered through charcoal and has a little bit of a woodsy flavor at the end, but it's nice and warming and delicious.
But it doesn't taste like charcoal.
It does not taste like charcoal. It just tastes like deliciousness.
I will say that I kind of was not willing to try anything in the Jack Daniels family until Courtney got me to try Gentleman Jack, and it was really good. I was very surprised.
It is surprisingly smooth, and just the blend of it is so good. I'm not great at explaining the different flavors that are in it, but this one just hits the spot.
Well, speaking of different flavors, a few weeks ago, we went to Michigan PARACON, as Courtney mentioned, and there were a lot of flavors of a lot of different types of paranormal information, crystals, healing. There were all sorts of really interesting people there. So we thought we would take this episode to kind of talk you through what going to something this large with so many of the people you know from TV, what it was like and what our experience was. We did not get VIP tickets. So we were just talking about this before we started up this podcast tonight. And it really wasn't worth it. I don't want to sit in the front. How about you?
No, all we could really tell the differences were that people were assigned seats to sit in the auditorium, and there's a little room that they could go in that had some snacks and drinks. But otherwise, it didn't really seem like much different from the regular tickets.
Yeah. So I'm still spending my summer in Michigan, about an hour outside of the Detroit area. And Courtney flew in for this. So we drove from right around the Bloomfield Hills area up to Sault Ste. Marie, which is right on the border of Canada and the US. And it's in the Upper Peninsula. They call those folks Yoopers. And it was like 4.5 hours. I thought it went pretty fast. We did it pretty fast, huh? The
We
drive.
did. We got to pass Mackinac, which was pretty.
Yeah, yeah. It was great. The drive was easy, and we were able to get a place in Sault Ste. Marie. The Michigan Paracon was at the casino. Was it called Kewadin?
Kewadin.
Kewadin Casino. A smaller. Is that what it was called?
Kewadin.
Okay, Kewadin. It was in the middle of nowhere, was it not?
Yes.
It was, and we pulled up and I'm like, oh, okay. This was probably one of the older Indian casinos. With that said, we got in on Thursday night, and I think some of the events and sessions started on Thursday. So we weren't there Thursday, but we were there all day Friday and Saturday. When we got in and got our registration, it was a nice little setup. It was organized, and it's my understanding that town of Sault Ste. Marie has about 15,000 people. The chamber or the city puts this on behalf of the Michigan Paranormal Society. I believe that there were almost 1,500 attendees at this. So it was 10% of the population showed up for the weekend, which was great for the city. Yeah, that's kind of what happened. We got there Thursday night. We were up bright and early on Friday. Everyone associated with this was so nice, weren't they? They were just glad to have everyone there, and everyone was excited.
They readily answered questions, were willing to help out, gave directions. Yeah, they were very nice. It was a good spot to be in.
Yeah. So I'm going to kick it over to Court. Neither one of us had ever been to anything like this. So the opportunity to go, and the main reason we wanted to go was to not just learn more about the whole paranormal community, but to meet up with many of the people that are part of this. And the best part about being at this conference was everyone was accessible. Everyone you see and read about, the folks you see on TV, we'll get into that. Some of the more respected investigators, writers, healers, equipment manufacturers. And so we saw it as a great opportunity to be able to meet all these folks and to really get some really great ideas to bring back to you for content. We started on Friday.
We started on Friday and we slept in a tiny bit because it was really nice after that long drive.
Oh yeah.
But we started,
Wait. Just tell them. So we stayed in the decent hotel, but we had some sort of interior room that overlooked an indoor pool. So it was like pitch black in the room at like 8 o'clock in the morning.
oh, it was ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the pool lights were on until midnight.
Yes.
So we started our morning off on Friday with the Kling brothers, and I had never heard of them, and they were interesting to listen to. I like how they rely on themselves, and they just use basic tools such as recorders. I think they use some EMF detectors, but they mostly relied on themselves to get evidence and to feel out what was going on. Their biggest impacts why they were investigators is because the impact of their investigations is important to them and they want to help people out. So they were interesting to listen to. It makes me want to go back and watch some of their Ghost Lab TV shows just to see how they work together and the type of investigations that they do.
Yeah, I really liked them. They were very down to earth, no pun intended. But they were, and they were real basic. They definitely were more into truly feeling what was around them. Like Courtney said, they used some basic tools, but they talked a lot about how they do investigations. Again, they are the Kling brothers from Ghost Lab. You can look them up on YouTube. Really, really engaging, and highly recommend everyone taking a look at them on YouTube. And Ghost Lab, was that the name of their show when they were on TV?
Yeah, that's Ghost Lab is the name of their show. I believe they were on the Discovery Network in the early 2010s. So they've been around for a while.
Yeah. So that was the first one.
And then we hung around and got to see the Tennessee Wraith Chasers. And I was just curious about them because I again never had heard of them, but I was curious about learning more about what other paranormal investigation teams do. So that's why I was excited to go to their presentation, and they kept talking about how we are our own best tool. So they had that theme going on with the Kling brothers too, that you're your best tool. It takes time to stitch together the story, and you can't possibly do it all in one night. Similar to the Kling brothers, the impact of their investigations is important to them. And I left their panel wanting to see more of them and look further at the work that they do. They're filming something now and will have a show streaming, they hope, in the winter or spring of 2024. So that's really exciting.
Yeah, and I think when we were having lunch one of the days, didn't we sit at the table next to them? They were next to us eating a pizza.
Yeah, they were eating pizza, and these poor guys, people were bombarding them, wanting
Yep.
to talk, and they're just trying to eat.
Yeah, I think the theme that we saw throughout, which was what made this so unique, all of these people were accessible. You could just walk up and talk to them. So I really liked listening to them. I wasn't that familiar with them. We went to their session, and for many of you out there that are listening, the Wrath or Wraith Chasers kind of made their debut on TV with a series called Ghost Asylum, in which they, investigated America's most frightening hospitals, sanitariums, penitentiaries, and that sort of thing. They are doing a new series now called Haunted Live. I guess it has something to do with like there's a live interactive paranormal investigation. And I think it's going to be done online or on YouTube or something like that. But the folks that were there was Chris Smith, who's founder, and I believe Steve McDougal was there too. They were really engaging. We all want to hear stories. So they were talking about stories of different investigations that they've done. The other thing too is that what got them into this is they grew up in a historic area of Tennessee that's very haunted. So it really created the desire to get involved in this. That's different than some folks who have shows that got into it because the channel was looking for a certain type of content. Then you have the paranormal investigators that got into this because they love it and they've been involved since they were young kids.
Hmm. Oh, it was Mike Gunkaus who was there because I was excited about him because he's their tech guru.
Oh, okay.
But I
Okay.
think I think the other two were there also, that Chris Smith and the Stephen McDougal.
Well, I do know I did a little bit of reading before we got on tonight. And funny enough, that Mike guy, he came from the music industry and he's very into all of the audio visual equipment and anything tech wise that's used to uncover evidence. So he's the tech guy. Now I remember because you kept saying to me, we got to go see them. We got to go see them because that guy deals with all the tech stuff. So that was the second one.
Hmm.
And then we
Then
saw,
we took a break. We got out of there. We got out of there for a little bit,
yeah,
and we saw a person that we were both excited to see, and we both left. We both left feeling that she was incredibly engaging during her presentation, and that's Andrea Perrin, from the daughter who lived in the Conjuring house.
that's right. She's kind of made a whole career out of that house, hasn't she?
She really has. She's written books. She had numerous books for sale. She now just came out with a documentary called, I think it's called Beyond the Grave.
Yep, it's called Beyond the Grave. She's all over YouTube. She's all over Facebook. She has on Facebook, she has a whole series that she does. I believe it's like a YouTube link and it's kind of like she has different interviews. Like one I saw was Soul School Sojourn, but she's very prolific. She's very well respected. And, she kind of walks into the room and she's kind of like paranormal royalty, mostly because she got to live it. And one of her big beliefs is that not only did she live it, but there's a part of that that's inside of her now and that's been with her her entire life. So she feels that whatever happened in that house is truly part of her. So she was interesting because I think she's into like UFOs and all that stuff too, isn't she?
She is. She talks about the Galactic Federation and wanting to meet people and work with that when we were there too.
So of course, we listened and really had a chance to talk to her. She's written those famous books.
House of Light. Yeah.
House of Light. And then there's a third that she says is her best one. Good reading. I have it on a Kindle and I'm trying to get through it. We stopped and talked to her for a while. And it's really interesting, her story, because growing up with what she had to contend with in that house is pretty crazy. And at some point, in her life, she learned to accept that. And she's embraced that, and that's become her life. And here's what's really exciting. So, Courtney was talking to her. I talked to her a little bit, but we were talking to her there. She had a set up at a table, and she signed the books and all that, and we started talking to her about our podcast, and she's very interested and has agreed to come on. So stay tuned as we get that scheduled. But she was an excellent speaker, very engaging, and I think that between her, Chip Coffee, and the Kindred Spirit folks, Amy Bruni and Adam Berry, they were kind of the highlights, even though Jack Osborne was the main celebrity there, or he was.
Yeah, like a headliner.
That's it, a headliner.
Yeah.
All I could say is, for any of you out there that are interested in this and you have an opportunity to go to one of these, at this particular one, anyone who's everyone was there. The Kling brothers, the Ghost brothers, Ghost Hunters, Andrea Perrin, the Wraith Chasers, Chip Coffee, Robert the Doll, the guy that does that. So it was really an experience. So that was day one.
It was a great experience. Well, and so with Andrea too, what we also thought was interesting is that she talks about how she doesn't investigate.
Yeah. Wasn't that interesting? She doesn't investigate because she investigates.
Yeah, and she really does seem to investigate. So that'll be an interesting thing to talk with her about when we have her on, is why do you say you don't investigate? Because it seems like she does.
Yes.
And
I totally agree.
Yeah. And she learned at some point in her life that when she learned to accept what was going on and embrace the spirits that she was living with, the experiences and energy as part of her life, and she accepted them, she said her whole view, her perspective changed, that it was more of an integration instead of actively working against what was happening in her house.
She also considers herself a medium, an empath, and probably a few other things. And you can't convince me that she doesn't do investigations, because she lived in one and she's been involved in several since. She may not have been the one leading it, but she's been involved. So I think she does investigations. So look her up. You can look her up on YouTube. She has a ton of content out there. Really interesting. Her story is very engaging. Take the time to do the search. You'll see a lot of videos and you can hear her tell her story. So that was day one for us on Friday. And again, in Sault Ste. Marie, there's 50,000 people. It's not the biggest city around, but I have to tell you, by the time we were done there, it was late. And I remember we didn't even catch dinner till like 10 p.m. because everything runs late.
Everything was running late. And if you didn't want to eat or the lines were too long at the casino, then you had to figure out what else to do.
Yeah. Well, they have to do something different.
They do. Those lines were pretty long. Well,
So,
then because we saw 3 more that night on Friday night too. That's why it was late. We saw David Salone, who talks about Robert the Doll.
yeah. Creepy.
Yes. Very creepy. That was one that I didn't fully stay in because I just didn't want to see a doll like that.
This guy, David Sloan, basically has a job and a career around this Robert the Doll, but he doesn't own the doll. It's in a museum. But he creates all this content around it, and it is creepy looking. Go to YouTube, look up Robert the Doll, and you'll see David Sloan. And it looks like a little boy doll dressed in, what was it, like a sailor suit or something?
There are a couple different suits or a couple different outfits that
he tells the story, but he used a very soft voice that kind of pulled you in. Now, I stood there. I was entranced by it. And Courtney, you kind of walked away. You walked out for a bit, and I stood there and listened to him in that big conference, the main conference area or the room. Most surprising to me, he goes through the whole story, and it turns out Robert the doll was really a girl, not a boy, but it lost so much of its hair and everything. Somebody thought it was a boy and started dressing it up like a boy.
Yeah, that was really interesting to me. I came in for the ending and I wasn't quite sure what to make out of that. So they
I
think
didn't.
the doll was because the doll was misunderstood with their gender, the doll was creating issues, is what I got out of it.
Yeah, and this doll is really creepy, and I guess people that get near it take their picture with it. It results in having other things in the picture. Like in one, it is a girl, but then bad things happen to them. And if you don't ask Robert the doll if you can take a picture with him, bad things will happen to you. I couldn't get a sense for that one how much of it was like overly commercialized, because remember we went to their table in one of those
Yes.
rooms, and it's like a whole attraction in Key West, down in Florida, and there's books on it and everything. And I mean, there's a lot of content out there for this one doll, but he was very engaging. He was a good storyteller, and it kind of made me feel like his whole shtick was being a storyteller about this doll. Look that up. Again, you can look that up on YouTube. But yeah, that was in the afternoon. And then the next one was really interesting because it was the cast of Ghost Hunters.
And they had a Q&A panel that was really interesting. They had seemed to have some inside jokes with each other
Not with
and
the audience.
yes.
Yeah, it was really strange because I was really looking forward to seeing them. That's a show that I've seen before. I liked their personalities on the show. They got up on stage, and I remember, who's the main guy? What's his name?
Jason.
Jason. He was like, "Well, we're here. You know, we're here to answer your questions." And that guy Jason, who is the lead guy, wouldn't let anyone else talk. It was like all about him and the Q&A, and they were talking over each other, and it wasn't that one disappointed me because it wasn't organized. You couldn't that Jason Hawes,
Yes.
he wouldn't let anyone finish anything they were saying.
I agree with you. I think they wanted to be there and they're trying to give out some interesting information, but they just kept talking over each other and I was disappointed too.
Shows like Ghost Hunters and people like Jason Hawes really, along with a few others, are some of the folks that put paranormal in these TV series on the map. And without them, we wouldn't have the interest and everything that we have today. So thank you for that, Jason.
The next one we got to see, we were both really excited about, was Chip Coffey and John Zaffis, and were they're presenting and honoring the Warrens. Their tribute to the Warrens was really touching. It felt so real and authentic. They were sharing stories and what it was like for John to grow up with them.
John was Ed Warren's nephew.
Yes.
So he got to learn from his uncle, and from an early age was part of their research group and part of the investigations, and really a nice, you could tell he was a nice guy. We later talked to him, and he was kind of quiet but very nice, and you know, it was very touching and authentic. And John had told us that Chip Coffey really wanted to use this respectful session about Ed and Lorraine Warren to really give John Zaffis credit, and basically an acknowledgement, a lifetime achievement acknowledgement for all the work he's done over the years. He's written several books, very nice man. And I encourage you all to look up and check out some of John Zaffis's books. You can get them. I know that they're on Amazon. I think that he's written Haunted by the Things You Love. He's written Demon Haunted, True Stories from the John Zaffis Vault. And he also wrote Shadows in the Dark. In addition, he's also done movies and television shows. Some of the movies that he's been associated with are Haunted Collector, A Haunting in Connecticut, The Possessed, Child of the Grave. He also has done many TV shows. He's been on Ghost Adventures, Ghost Hunters, A Haunting. So check him out. But I have to say, I don't know how you felt about this, but everyone loves Chip Coffey. I mean, he's such a nice person. We were standing outside and he was outside having a cigarette and he's just sitting there talking to people, but he had a great stage presence. He was really cool. I liked him.
I liked him too. He's just seems like someone you could just meet and hang out with and just have fun with.
Yeah, and again, I would say along with John Zaffis, look up Chip Coffey because Chip Coffey was one of the first mediums used on any series regarding paranormal back in 2007, Paranormal State. It was during the filming of Paranormal State that he met Lorraine Warren. They had done a couple of episodes together and became friends. But Chip Coffey did Paranormal State. He's currently on Kindred Spirits. And he's just done a ton of stuff. And I encourage all of you to take a look at his background. Look him up on YouTube. And you'll see that he's been on several shows. He's a very well-known psychic and just a really engaging person. I liked him.
I liked him too. He seems to be the person that he portrays on TV.
Yep. Yeah.
That was really nice to see. He is who he is.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was Friday. Again, every night we're like writing down all of our notes. The other piece is, in between these sessions, we're talking to a lot of these folks. We've got several of them hopefully lined up for interviews over the next 3 or 4 months. So it's going to be pretty exciting. But that was Friday, and let's cut over to Saturday and talk about the people we listened to, and some of these we got to talk to on Saturday. It started with James Anido and Sam Baltusis. Now you like this guy. You like James, didn't you? James is a demonologist, a deacon, and a paranormal investigator. And Sam is the author of a bunch of books on haunted hotels. And he actually is a general manager in a hotel, right?
Yes. I really like James a lot. He was speaking more my language. I'm not big into demonology, things like that. I can handle it and deal with it, but it's not something that often intrigues me. But what I liked about him is he wanted to talk also about these other paranormal things like the elementals, like fairies and trolls and all that cool stuff that I'm into. And so that really struck a chord with me. And I'm so excited that he agreed to come on our podcast.
Yeah, he was really interesting. The thing that I really picked up from their session is here he is. He says he's a demonologist, and he was honest in saying that, what did he say? Like 1%?
Yes.
1% of everything he investigates is truly demonology related. Most of it, well, obviously, almost all of it has nothing to do with demonology, demons, exorcisms, and all that. And I think that he was very clear to say that. And as much as, because he is a demonologist, I felt like as much as he would want to talk about all of his different experiences, he was really clear to state that, like, it's hardly ever the case. And you know what? This reigns true when you read some of the paranormal and demonology stuff as it relates to, the Catholic Church and exorcisms and Gabriel Amorth. He
Mhm.
was the main exorcist for the Vatican, something like that. He also confirmed in something that I read that very, very, very few of the cases he investigates are actually an infestation of a demon or something that requires an exorcism. He says it's maybe 1 out of 100 cases. So,
Yep.
but they were really interesting, very nice. We're very open to us interviewing them. I think it's worth saying that only being 6 or 7 episodes in, we're going to be pushing, 1,000 downloads in the next few months. So we're growing quickly, and we thank all of you for listening. So that was a good one. That was a
Yeah,
good
it
one.
was a good one. I highly recommend you check out James and Sam. I think they what I thought is that maybe they work together, but I don't think they work together. I think they do things separate.
Yeah, yeah, that was interesting. And then we had an EVP class.
Yes, that was so exciting with MJ Dixon. I thought that was really well done, and we learned more what we can do with differently with our EVPs.
I think the thing that was interesting was she was saying that you can adjust the volume. There's certain things you can adjust on an EVP through software and mixing, but you should be changing frequencies. So there is a tendency on EVPs to do whatever you have to do to make the words clear. And she gave a lot of examples that if you do anything other than pull static off and adjust volume up and down, if you start to really mess with the mids, the lows, and all the different adjustments that you can make through the software, it actually changes the words. Like, I was amazed that just by moving and adjusting some of the digital, I'm going to say the digital footprint, that it changes the words they're saying. I would have never guessed or thought that. And she was giving all kinds of tips on what to do, what not to do. One of the things I did not know is if you mess with an EVP and you do anything other than just modify the volume, and maybe there's a few other things you're allowed to do with it, you have to throw it out. It does not pass the test of being a good EVP. And I also didn't know, because this is all new to me, I didn't know that there were certain classes of EVPs. Like, wasn't there like uh, was it called a class, like class 1 through 4?
Yeah, class 1 is where it is the crispest, clearest you can get. You shouldn't have had to make any edits to it. It just comes right out of the box and you're good to go. And then class 2 was where you can kind of hear it, and you might question it slightly, but you can figure it out what the EVP says. And class 3 is just when it's kind of a jumbly mess of words.
Right.
And you may be able to figure it out, but you may not be able to.
Yeah. No, it was, I learned a lot, took a lot of notes. And then we went to a session with the Ghost Brothers. That was a lot of fun. Now, keep in mind, these folks are walking all over this facility, casino. So you could just walk up to them. And then there's rooms where there's vendors, there's equipment, and all these folks and a whole lot more. are set up to either, you can buy their books, a lot of them have shirts, you can buy all kinds of equipment. There's a whole lot of tools of the trade there, as well as all their content. What was cracked me up is you go to some of these tables and they were trying to sell stickers instead of giving them away. I don't know. But Ghost Brothers was fun. I mean, I wasn't familiar with them. You were. And when I listened to them and I heard their story of, kind of where they came from, they weren't paranormal investigators to begin with.
No.
Jawan were fashion designers, and Marcus was a full-time barber.
Yes.
And they were interested in this stuff. And they went to the network and said, you don't have any shows around paranormal with Black people in them. And we think that's a market you should be going after. And that's how they kind of got going. And if you get a chance, watch their show. They mix kind of comedy with, in all seriousness, the investigation they're doing. And they were good. I think that they're also very genuine and they really enjoy doing what they do.
Yeah, they just were funny. They had everyone laughing throughout their entire panel, their
They did.
Q&A, and they were just fun.
Look them up. You can get them on Discovery, Hulu. I'm sure they're all over YouTube. Yeah, check them
After
out.
that, we got to see Project Fear, which I was excited to see because they were called Project Destination and they're actually from Minnesota.
Oh, well, let's hear. Talk about them because didn't they go off of TV and now they have a YouTube channel?
They did. So Project Destination was canceled and then they renamed themselves Project Fear and they are now streaming on YouTube. They have their own channel and subscription and they're still plugging away doing some fun paranormal stuff.
And Project Fear features Chelsea Layden, Dakota Layden, Tanner Wiseman, and Alex Schroeder. So look them up. YouTube, Project Fear. We should get them on our podcast.
We should.
You could get them on.
I have reached out to them. Like they said to message them on Instagram, and I did. And then I received a message on Instagram that I had to join their Project Fear Club in order to communicate.
Wow.
Well, I will keep trying because I really thought they were interesting.
Yep. They were interesting. And so was Amy Bruni, Adam Berry, and Jack Osborne, which is who we went to go see at 6:30.
I was so excited for this, and we did not know that Jack Osborne was going to join them. That seemed like a last second thing. And I was most surprised by them because on their show, they're pretty chill, but they're serious.
Right.
And they are hilarious in person. Oh my gosh.
Well, I really enjoyed them. And, what surprised me, I don't know if it surprised you, but for those of you that watch Kindred Spirits, which is Amy Bruni and Adam Berry, they seem very subdued on the show, very thoughtful, very deliberate, very sensitive. And then you meet them in person and they're crazy. They're cray cray. That Adam Berry should be on Broadway. Everything that comes out of his mouth is a song and dance and just totally different, which was really, I was surprised, but I was also very entertained and I really liked him and I liked her too. And I like Jack Osborne. By the way, Jack Osborne is a decent guy. He's a nice guy. You can tell he's a little shy. He was really kind of shy up there on stage trying to get his groove, but it was fun seeing them. And, Amy and Adam on Saturday were on and involved in a lot of different things.
They really were. They had a lot going on. And the majority of these investigators were also at that Valley camp, the investigation that they did Thursday night.
Tell everyone what Valley Camp is. Valley Camp is a ship in Sault Ste. Marie that it looks like is permanently moored there. And it's supposed to be really haunted, and it's one of the highlights of Michigan PARACON every year.
Yeah, sounds like every year they do an investigation there.
So we missed that, but it is a museum ship.
According to MJ in our EVP class, they got some pretty clear EVPs a couple of times.
Well, there you go. So the city of Sault Ste. Marie purchased it and turned it into a historical site. Check it out. Let's talk about what happened. Let's talk about what we saw after Amy and Adam and Jack. We had a break between them and the last part of Michigan PARACON in terms of sessions, and it was called What's Up Weirdo Live. You want to tell everyone about that?
So there's a podcast called What's Up Weirdo, and it is with Jessica Napick and John E.L. Tenney, and they talk about anything and everything. And they're really cute. It's like a look into their lives. They literally do talk about anything and everything. They do have a paranormal bent. They talk about UFOs sometimes and paranormal investigations. It sounds like John E.L. Tenney goes on those strange escapes with Amy Bruni and Adam Berry. They're really funny. And so this Jessica Napick did a Jimmy Fallon style live where she had guests on and just chatted with all of the paranormal people she had on: Amy Bruni, Adam Berry, Jack Osborne. She had the John E.L. Tenney was on there, and that's how they ended it. She was pretty funny. And then after that, they did a match game. For those of you who don't know what the match game is it was a TV game show back in the 60s, 70s maybe, where you'd be given a phrase and you'd have to fill in the blank, and then the celebrities would fill in the blank and try and guess what they think you're going to say. And so the paranormal celebrities were the panel, and then they pulled up two people from the audience.
Yeah, it was fun. I thought that it sounded kind of too campy, but it was actually really entertaining. And Adam Berry was hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he was hilarious. It just his on-screen persona is nothing like he is in person. I thought that whole last bit, Courtney, I'm glad you said, "Oh, let's stay. I want to see this." And I was thinking, "Oh, that looks stupid." And it was actually really entertaining, and it was a good way to end it. I'll tell you that few stories we heard. We're going to do a short on a story that I got from one of the managers in the casino. He's an Indian. He's part of the tribe up there, and he was sharing some of his experiences. We're going to share that with you in a short at some point in time in the near future. But I think like overall, just I know that you know a lot of this already, but I felt like I went to school for a couple of days to really understand. The biggest thing that I took away from this is there is 6 degrees of separation between paranormal, mediums, healing, the crystals, all of the natural elements that people use for various things. And then the cool part was all the tools of the trade, and the EVP stuff was phenomenal because now I know, the different classes of EVPs and what you should and shouldn't do to manipulate an EVP recording. It was really interesting. And you know what the best part was? I think, Court, we got to spend 2 days really brainstorming and thinking about all the things we want to share with everyone on this podcast.
Yes. I really enjoyed this trip. I learned I learned more about EVPs. EVPs and I haven't always been on friendly terms, just meaning I haven't always been able to catch them like I can catch things in pictures or intuitively. And so I really enjoyed going to that EVP class a lot. It taught me even more about how we can do the EVPs different and maybe how to set us up for more success than what we're currently having in terms of EVPs. I also really enjoyed talking with other paranormal investigators and about how they do things, what equipment they use. Because, like we've talked about, especially in our equipment episode, not many people talk about equipment, period. So
No.
it was nice to hear them say that they still rely on themselves, but then they use these other tools to help out and to help provide evidence.
Yeah, I think it was just an incredible opportunity for us to kind of have an offsite and figure out all the investigations that we want to do, mostly on the central coast of California, but we have some in other parts. Like, that I want to go to that conjuring house. They have
Yes.
the people that bought the conjuring house that the parents lived in for 10 years for paranormal investigations. So we definitely want to do that. Maybe we'll do one of those secret escapes with Amy Bruni. I know there's one coming up in Mackinac Island. Oh, by the way, don't forget, we've got to get the guy who wrote those books, The Ghosts of Mackinac. He wants to come on the podcast.
Yes.
So that was pretty exciting.
Wow.
We were able to really lay out a whole plan for the next year of all the content we want to share with you all, the people we want to talk to, the investigations we want to conduct and share with you. So it was worth it. I think it was fun. We did a little bit of a road trip and you got back to California A-okay.
Absolutely. It was
So
a wonderful trip. It was so fun, and I loved meeting all these great people. And even more when we talk about our podcast and ask them to come on, the majority of them said yes.
yeah,
So that was really neat. I'm
yeah,
excited to see how we progress with these different interviews and the cool things we get to talk about.
yeah. So there you have it. That's it. That's it for Michigan Paracon. It's a wrap until 2024. So with that, don't forget, you can get a hold of us at spiritsandcousins at gmail.com. And Courtney, where else are we?
We are also Spirits and Cousins on Instagram, and we just joined TikTok.
That's right. We're on Apple Podcasts, every Stitcher, Google, Spotify, all those good things. But most importantly, we appreciate all you listening to our episodes and listening to us, and look forward to the next one. So until next time, I'm Tish.
And I'm Courtney.
And this is Spirits and Cousins.